The champagne flutes shattered against the marble floor as two massive Rottweilers, eyes burning with fury, lunged at the terrified guests. Garret Helm stood at the top of his grand staircase, arms crossed, watching another charity gala descend into chaos. A cruel smile played at his lips as he raised his voice above the screams. $1 million to anyone who can make these beasts behave. Cash tonight. Any takers? No one moved except to flee. Welcome to Kindness Arena. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen connections that change lives, please help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter and deserve to be heard by hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, comment your thoughts, where you're watching from, and share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated. Your support keeps these powerful, true stories alive. Garret Helm hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by being soft. At 47, he was steel and success personified, designer suits, a penthouse that overlooked the entire city, and a reputation for ruthlessness that made competitors tremble. He collected things that projected power, vintage cars, rare art, and 2 years ago, Con and Titana, the most aggressive Rottweilers the breeder had ever seen. They're perfect, Garret had said when he first saw them. They don't pretend to be something they're not. The dogs were reflections of their owner, distrustful, fierce, and utterly unwilling to submit. Garret had hired 7 trainers. All 7 had quit. 1 left in an ambulance. The dogs lived in the penthouse, ruling it like warlords, snarling at staff, destroying furniture, and making everyone's life miserable. But Garret didn't care. He liked that people were afraid. Tonight's charity gala had been his assistant's idea. Good for your image, Mr. Helm, but Garret had turned it into entertainment. When Con and Titana had burst through the doors he'd deliberately left unlocked, he'd seen an opportunity. The bet was spontaneous, yes, but also calculated. He'd watch these privileged, pampered people scatter, and he'd prove what he already knew, that no amount of money could buy genuine loyalty or respect. Everything had a price, and everyone had a breaking point. As the last guest fled, Garret descended the stairs. The dogs stood in the center of the great room, hackles raised, surrounded by broken glass and overturned tables. They growled low in their throats, daring anyone to approach. That's what I thought, Garret muttered, pulling out his phone to call his assistant. Get someone to clean this. Excuse me, mister. The voice was small, almost swallowed by the vast room. Garret turned. Standing in the doorway, the service entrance, he noticed was a child. A little girl, no more than 8 or 9, wearing clothes that had seen better days months ago. Her shoes were held together with duct tape. Her dark hair was tangled, but her eyes, green as sea glass, were steady and bright. How did you get in here? Garret demanded. Security. They're busy with all the scared people outside, the girl said simply. She stepped further into the room, and Garret noticed she was holding a small, dirty backpack. I heard what you said. About $1 million. Garret barked out a laugh. You gonna calm my dogs? Calm them, she corrected. Her name was embroidered on her backpack. He noticed. Ciara Tomas in faded thread. You said to calm them, not claim them. Little girl, Ciara. Ciara, he said with exaggerated patience. Those dogs are dangerous. They've bitten professional trainers. If you go near them, you'll get hurt, and I'll get sued by whatever shelter you escaped from. Go back outside. I didn't escape from anywhere. I don't have anywhere to go. She said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity. And I won't get hurt, but I need you to promise me about the money. Do you keep your promises? Something in her directness caught him off guard. I'm a businessman. My word is a contract. Okay, then. Ciara set down her backpack carefully and walked toward the dogs. Stop. Garret moved forward, genuinely alarmed now. I wasn't serious about, but Ciara wasn't stopping. She walked steadily toward Con and Titana, who had turned their massive heads in her direction. Their growling intensified, lips curling back to reveal teeth that could crush bone. Garret's heart hammered. He was about to witness a child get mauled in his own home. He reached for his phone to call 911. Already calculating the lawsuit, the media circus, Ciara sat down. Right there on the floor, 10 feet from the dogs, she simply crossed her legs and sat. Her hands rested in her lap. She didn't look at the dogs. She didn't speak. She just sat. Con and Titana's growling faltered. Ciara remained still, her breathing slow, and even a full minute passed. The dogs stopped growling. They stood there, confused, heads tilted slightly. This tiny human wasn't running, wasn't screaming, wasn't trying to dominate them or hurt them. She was just there. Another minute. Garret found himself holding his breath. Slowly, Con took a step forward. Then another. Titana followed. They approached Ciara cautiously, noses working, trying to understand this strange, small creature who smelled like rain and concrete and didn't fear them. When Con got close enough, Ciara finally moved. She extended one small hand, not toward the dog, but simply opened it, palm up, on her knee. An offering of nothing, just presence. Con sniffed her hand. His tail, which had been rigid, gave the smallest wag. "It's okay," Ciara whispered, so soft Garret barely heard. "Nobody's going to hurt you. Nobody's going to yell. You're safe." Titana sat down. Then, unbelievably, Con lowered himself to the ground and rested his massive head on Ciara's knee. Garret's phone slipped from his hand, clattering on the marble. Ciara looked up at him, her hand now gently stroking Con's head while Titana pressed against her other side. "They're not mean," she said. "They're scared." Scared. Garret found his voice, though it came out strangled. "Those are attack dogs. They're bred to be aggressive." "No." Ciara shook her head, still petting Con with a tenderness that made something in Garret's chest ache inexplicably. "They're bred to protect. But nobody taught them what to protect or how. So they protect themselves from everything. That's not the same as being mean. That's being alone." She said it like she knew, like she understood from the inside what it meant to be defensive because you had no other choice. Garret descended the stairs slowly and approached, though he kept his distance. For the first time in 2 years, his dogs weren't threatening someone. Con's eyes had actually closed under Ciara's gentle touch. Titana had rolled onto his side. "How did you do that?" "I didn't do anything," Ciara said. "I just showed them I wasn't scared and I wasn't going to hurt them. Dogs know when you're afraid or when you want to control them. They feel it, but if you just be with them, they remember they don't have to fight." "Where did you learn this?" "From being homeless." She said it simply, still focused on the dogs. "You learn that angry people are usually just scared. Scared people are usually just hurt, and hurt people need someone to sit with them until they remember they're okay." Garret sat down on the bottom step, suddenly exhausted. This child, this homeless child he'd tried to dismiss, had just done what 7 professional trainers couldn't, and she'd done it with nothing but patience and presence. "How long have you been on the streets?" he asked quietly. 2 years. Since my mom got sick and died. I was 7. You're 9. 9.5. 9.5 years old and living on the streets for 2 years. Garret spent more on a single suit than this child had probably seen in her entire life, and she was teaching him about fear and loneliness. "The money," Ciara said suddenly. "You promised." "I need it." "For what?" Garret asked, curiosity overriding his usual suspicion. Ciara finally looked up at him fully. "There's a lady, Ms. Rosa, who runs a shelter 2 blocks from here. She feeds kids like me, but the building owner is selling, and she can't afford to buy it. If she loses the building, 17 kids lose the only safe place they have to eat and sleep sometimes. She needs $800,000 to buy it. I figured, maybe." She trailed off, looking down at the dogs again. "I know $1 million isn't enough for the whole thing, but I thought maybe it would help. Maybe you'd give the rest when you saw she was serious about saving kids." Garret felt something crack inside him. This child, who had nothing, who'd just performed a miracle in his living room, was planning to give away $1 million to help other kids she didn't even know. "What about you?" he heard himself ask. "What were you going to keep for yourself?" Ciara's brow furrowed like she didn't understand the question. "Nothing. I don't need anything except food and maybe new shoes soon. Ms. Rosa would let me help her at the shelter. That's all I want, to help other kids not feel so alone." Garret Helm had built his fortune on understanding leverage, on reading people's weaknesses and exploiting them. He could spot a con artist from a mile away. But looking at this child, at her worn-out shoes and her gentle hands on his aggressive dogs, at the way she spoke about giving away a fortune to help strangers. There was no con here, just a purity of purpose that he'd forgotten could exist. "Stand up," he said, his voice rough. Ciara carefully extracted herself from the dogs, who whined softly but didn't move to stop her. She stood, barely reaching Garret's chest, even though he was sitting. "The bet was real," Garret said. "You calm my dogs. You earn the money, but I'm going to make you a different deal." Suspicion flickered across Ciara's young face, learned wariness from 2 years of surviving. "What deal?" "I'll give Ms. Rosa the full amount she needs for the building. 800,000. As a gift, not a loan." Ciara's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? But the $1 million you earned, that's going into a trust fund in your name. You can't touch it until you're 18, but it'll grow. When you're old enough, you'll have enough to go to college, start a business, or do whatever you dream of doing." "I don't need." "I know you don't think you need it," Garret interrupted. "But you do. You're 9 years old, Ciara. You should be in school, not on the streets. You should have a home. I can't afford. You can now." Garret stood, a plan forming in his mind with the same quick decisiveness that built his empire. "I'm going to hire Ms. Rosa as a full-time director with a real salary to run that shelter professionally. I'm going to fund it properly. And you're going to live there in a real room with a real bed, and you're going to go to school. Good schools. The best schools." Ciara was shaking her head. "Why would you do all that?" "Because," Garret said, and he had to pause to understand his own answer. He looked at Con and Titania, still lying peacefully on the floor. At this child who'd seen through his dog's aggression to their fear, who'd seen through his wealth to make a bet that would help others. "Because you just taught me something no business school or boardroom ever could." "What?" "Those things I thought made me powerful, money, fear, control, they just made me alone. Like my dogs, protecting myself from everyone and everything." He crouched down to her level. "You had nothing, but you were willing to risk everything to help others. That's real power. That's real strength." Tears welled in Ciara's eyes. "I'm just a kid." "You're extraordinary," Garret corrected gently. "And I want to help you become whoever you're meant to be. Will you let me?" Ciara glanced at the dogs, then back at Garret. "Can I still visit them?" "Con and Titania." Garret smiled, a real smile, the first and longer than he could remember. "Every day if you want. I think they'd like that. I think they need you." "Okay," Ciara whispered. "Okay, I'll try. But Ms. Rose's shelter first. Those kids can't wait." "Deal." Garret extended his hand. Ciara shook it, her small hand swallowed by his, but her grip was firm. The annual fundraiser for the Tomas Youth Foundation was held at the Helm Tower Ballroom. Ciara Tomas, now 17, stood at the podium in a simple blue dress, addressing a room full of business leaders, philanthropists, and journalists. 8 years ago, she said, her voice clear and confident, I made a bet with Mr. Helm. I believed that underneath all the anger and fear, his dogs just needed someone to see them differently. Tonight, I want to challenge all of you to the same kind of bet. She gestured to the presentation behind her, showing statistics on homeless youth, addiction, mental health. These aren't problems to be feared or controlled. They're people to be seen and heard. The Tomas Foundation doesn't just provide shelter and food. We provide presence. We sit with people in their pain until they remember they're not alone and it works. In the front row, Garret Helm sat with Con and Titania on either side of him, now well-trained therapy dogs who visited the foundation weekly. He watched Ciara speak with a pride he'd never felt for any business deal he'd closed. She'd just been accepted to Stanford with a full scholarship she didn't need because of the trust fund, but she'd insisted on earning it anyway. She planned to study social work and business to build an empire of compassion instead of capital. After the speech, as guests mingled, Ciara found Garret on the balcony. Thank you, she said simply, for keeping your promise. Thank you, Garret replied, for teaching me what promises are really worth. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Two people who'd both been alone, both been afraid, both been protecting themselves from the world. Until $1 million bet taught them that the bravest thing you can do is let someone see your fear. And the most powerful thing you can do is choose to sit with theirs. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted and that even a broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Arena because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in a comment what you would have done differently if you were a millionaire. Would you have allowed the girl? Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? We'd love to hear your story.